Right, I'm going to try again because it didn't really work last time. And yes, apologies for the lighting. If I turn the lights on behind me, it looks really weird. It looks like I've got some kind of halo thing going over my head. And that's going to be very distracting for you. So, welcome. Thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to come and listen to this. If you're watching on catch up, then thank you again. As I always say, I'm very grateful for people giving up their most valuable resource, which is their time to listen to me. So I'm going to make this absolutely jam-packed full of value for you in the hopes that you'll really learn something, because what I'm going to aim to do and what my mission is really for you is to help you upscale so that when we hit 2023, which, let's be honest, is not going to be the easiest year. I think we can all agree it's not very nice out there at the moment, and the world has changed. We don't know how things are going to be next year, but this is a time when those of us who are going to survive need to step up, and we need to have next level skills, and we need to do things differently than we've done before. I was listening to a really interesting podcast this evening from Dean Graziosi, and he was saying the conversations that we're having today are different even than the conversations we were having 6 months ago, and they're different than the conversations we were having a year ago. And I'm sure you found that with your patients. We're not so much talking about COVID anymore. People are talking about recession and economy. And so we need to think differently than we've done before. If we do the same thing that we did before, we're going to get the same results. So we need next level results, and the best way to do that is to model your behaviour on someone who's been more successful. That's what I'm doing, and then I'm bringing it down to you. So it was really interesting when I put the poll in the group as to what the most popular thing was for me to do a live about, and I understand why. Getting patients to come back is a challenge for a lot of new and recent graduates, and I'm going to go on a little bit later to talk about why that's the case and what you can do to override that. So I'm going to start off by really going back to basics and ask you, and I want you to ask yourself, what are your reasons for finding it difficult to ask patients to come back? If you are really honest with yourself, you don't have to tell me, but if you are really honest with yourself, what are the reasons why you find it difficult? I know what my reasons were when I first started out. I would imagine yours are fairly similar, and I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later. And I reckoned that you wanted me to do this live because you were finding that patients aren't coming back. So what are you saying, or what are you not saying, that means that patients aren't coming back? What are you saying that's allowing them to not come back? Because that's really what's happening. By not saying the right things, you're allowing them not to come back. Are you even asking them to come back for more treatment? That's an important thing to note for yourself. Are you asking them to come back for more treatment or not? What words are you using? What language are you using? What words are you having in the conversation to get over your point of why patients need to come back? Now, I really strongly believe it's our responsibility to get our patients to come back. We are professionals. We are the experts. And I think we have a moral obligation and a moral responsibility to get our patients to come back if we feel it's appropriate. I'll just put that little caveat on, because I know there are some circumstances where it's not necessary, but in the cases where you think and you know in your head and you know in your heart this patient would really benefit from some more treatment, I believe we have a moral obligation to convince themselves that we're trying to sell them something. We're not. We need to serve them. We need to make sure that we provide them with the best service. And when I talk about service, people get a bit funny with that word. And I was watching something that Jay Shetty put on Instagram. I don't know whether you know Jay Shetty. He wrote a book, Think Like a Monk, and he's like a motivational speaker, personal development speaker now. And he said, when you think about service, don't think about service as being a servant. So you're not at someone's beck and call and you're not expected to do whatever they want you to do. Service is giving something to somebody or to something and leaving it better than when you found them. So going to a place and leaving it cleaner or tidier than when you found it. Coming across people in your life, patients, family members, friends, and leaving their life better than when you found it or when they found you. So doing something of service to someone else. Think about it in those terms. Our dear departed Queen Elizabeth, she spoke a lot about service to her subjects. And again, she wasn't talking about being their servant. She was talking about doing what she can for her subjects. And if we take that to osteopathy, I want to leave osteopathy better than when I found it. I want to leave my patients better than when I found them. So in my 95-year-old, got a good thought there, my rocking chair moment when I'm 95 years old, I can look back and say, I did something for the osteopathic profession that left it better than when I joined. I did something for my osteopathic colleagues, students, you, that left you better than when I found you. And I want you to do the same for your community, because it's a wonderful feeling when you know that's what you've managed to achieve. So let's talk a little bit more. I've got my notes here, which is why I keep looking down, because I don't want to miss anything. I think one of the things that we worry about is that patients don't have any money to come back for more treatment, particularly at this moment in time. And I really want you to get that idea out of your head. We don't know what patients' financial situation is at all. I made the mistake in the past of assuming I knew a couple of patients' financial status, and I was completely wrong. So we mustn't make that assumption. What we need to be saying to our patients is, if you are willing to engage with me in the treatment process, I will do my utmost to help you. But patients have to be able to see the value of what you're providing. They need to see you're 100% committed to getting them better. Yes, there will always be patients who think we are out to just take their money from them, and there's nothing that we can do about that. I suspect there are a very, very small percentage of the patients that we see. We could also say there are some osteopaths out there, unfortunately, some unscrupulous osteopaths. You get that in any profession, don't you? Where they are not maybe behaving in the most appropriate professional way. We can't do anything about that. But if you know, and if I know in my heart that I genuinely believe that patient's life is going to be better, their pain levels are going to be less, they're going to feel better, they're going to be able to do more activities by having treatment, I know I'm doing it authentically, the patient will feel that and they will want to carry on. So let's just take a couple of steps back again. And if you remember at the very beginning, I said, what are your reasons for finding it difficult to not encourage patients to come back? And I would like to guess there are two main reasons. And these are really big reasons that affect us, not just in practice, but in daily life. And they affect everybody. These are not specific to osteopaths. They're not specific to us as a group. And the first one is, you don't feel you're good enough. And the second one is, it's the pain versus pleasure effect, which means you're worried about them saying no. You're worried about the pain of them saying no. So I'm going to elaborate on both of those points. So, not good enough. Now, I've spoken a lot about mindset in the past, haven't I? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. The osteopath down the road is better than me. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. I'm too northern. I'm too southern. We can come up with all these crazy ideas in our head. And if you continue to believe that, you are going to hold yourself back. And you are not going to be able to achieve what you have the potential to achieve. And if you continue to think like that, what are you going to miss out on? What are you not going to be able to do for your community? So I'd really, really encourage you to, when that thought comes into your head, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, you actually need to start saying to yourself, do you know what, I absolutely am. I'm good as I am. If it's knowledge that you don't feel you have, that's a different matter, because knowledge you can go out and get. There are countless courses out there that you can go and do. So knowledge, if you don't feel you have the knowledge, go and get it. If you don't feel you're good enough, then you're telling yourself a lie, because you absolutely are. So that's the first reason why we struggle. We don't think that the treatment that we give them is good enough. I'm not good enough, therefore they won't pay. We need to get rid of that. And the second point is this pain pleasure. So in life, we will do more to avoid pain of any variety than we will to gain pleasure. So, for example, if you are going on a blind date and your friends have set you up and you're really keen to do it, and then right at the last minute, your brain goes, oh no, but what if they're really awful? And what if we have a terrible time? What if I really don't like them? And what if I have nothing to say? And what if the night ends up being a total disaster? No, I'm just not going to go. That's you avoiding pain, rather than thinking, well, we might get on, we might not get on. I'm sure there's something, because I'm an osteopath and I'm used to talking to people, I'm sure there's something that I can find to talk to them about. It might be a bit awkward at times, but hey, why don't I just go and give it a go and see what happens? We're much more likely to do the first one than we are the second one. And if you take that in the context of treatments and patients, it's as if we change the word pain and put in embarrassment or fear of them saying no, that's more what we're thinking. And so to avoid that, to avoid them saying no, we just don't ask them, because we think, oh, they're going to say no. And then we're going to be embarrassed, and we're going to be in the treatment room, and it's going to be really awkward. And no, I just don't want to do that. So I'll just, if they ask, should I come back for more treatment? That's great, I'll say yes, but I'm not actually going to ask them. You're doing them a massive disservice. So those two main reasons, I believe, are the ones that hold us back. The belief that you're not good enough, and the embarrassment versus benefit for the patient, the pain versus pleasure. So, are you ready for my 10 top tips? I need you to get that bit out of the way, because I need you to see where you're coming from. Because if you don't know why you're struggling to get patients back, I think you do, but if you don't know why you're struggling to get patients back, then these next top tips aren't going to work, because you're going to think, oh, if I just put these in place, it's going to work. But actually, you need to be clear in your own head what it is that's stopping you and what you can do to overcome those fears and concerns and worries. And there's lots that I can talk about. There's lots that I can guide you with. Because I have been in that place. I'll tell you a story later on about my experiences as a new graduate. I know exactly how you're feeling, because I have absolutely sat in your shoes, and I have absolutely been that osteopath going, oh God, I can't ask. They'll be fine. If they want to come back, they'll come back. But anyway, here are my top tips. And I think the first one to consider is, do you genuinely believe that treatment will be beneficial for them? And if you do, you need to tell them that. As I said earlier, we have a moral obligation to look after our patients. They have made the decision to put their trust in us, and so we have a moral obligation to look after them. And if you genuinely believe that further treatment is really going to benefit them, you have to tell them. You have to ask them. So that's number one. Number two, however, is you need to have, in order for you to tell them, what I find is really useful, and what I've developed over my time as a practitioner, is you need to have a treatment plan, and you need to tell them about it. Patients don't want to think they are coming back for treatment week after week after week after week, particularly at the moment with the economy being the way that it is. Even though I've said we have to put the money at the door, patients don't really want to think that that's going to be the case. There may be some patients who do want to come back forever, and actually they're the ones that we need to get out the door, but that's a whole different conversation about attachment issues. So you need to have a plan. That's number two. Number three, if we think about this plan, and I think you'll have heard me talk about this before, you need to set it out really clearly. And in fact, I was taught this, and it's benefited me hugely throughout my career, is think about anyone's progress, whether it's an acute patient or a chronic patient, in terms of short, medium, and long term in their treatment plan. It's up to them as to whether they follow it. But if you're coming at this from a place of authenticity, and it's coming from your heart rather than your wallet, which I know isn't the case for you here, you need to explain that to them, and they need to see what the benefit is of them following you on that journey. So number 4 is they need to see your commitment to that healing journey. So what happens during that journey? What milestones, if you like, do you want them to get to in order for them to then move on to the medium plan or the long-term plan? And what if things don't go according to plan? Tell them what your plan for them would be if things don't go according to plan. Because patients want to see your commitment. If they can see it and if they can feel it, if you're coming from that place of real authenticity, then yes, it might be a struggle financially for them to come, but they'll find the money because they will know the benefit. How many times has the patient come back in and they said to you, oh, let's call the patient, let's call the osteopath Joe, because that can be male or female. Joe, I can't tell you how much better I felt. I felt better even as I walked out the door. I've been able to do this week, I've been able to do that, I've been able to play football with my friends, I've been able to play tennis, whatever it is. So they know that they'll benefit from treatment, but they need to know you're committed to that at the same time. So those are the first 4, is really believing and being honest that you think they need treatment, having a plan, discussing it with them, and then allowing them to see that journey of where you want to take them. Because it's easier for them to see where they want to be than for them to feel that they're just going to be coming back week in, week out with what's the benefit going to be for them. So now we get to the tricky bit about what to say to our patients to get them to come back. I say to get them to come back. It's actually, as I've been planning this talk, it's been difficult to know what words to use, because if I say get them to come back, it kind of sounds like I'm making them do it. I know the chiropractors use the word continue care, and I suppose continue care, continue treatment is possibly a better way. So if I say get them back, I'm really meaning continue care. As I say many times, if you struggle with this aspect of what to say, write something down. Just by the action of writing it down, it lodges itself a little bit more in your mind, and then practice it. Practice it in your head, in the car, on the journey to work, or if you're out walking. Practice saying it over and over again, so the spiel becomes easier. It kind of flows off pat, and it just becomes something that you can easily say. I wondered whether you might like me to give you just a few pointers to what I say. You don't have to follow this, but I've spent a lot of time over my 23 years listening to other practitioners and how they say things, and I've melanged them all together. So new patients come in, or an existing patient, and I might say something like, I would really like to see you again in X number of days, because we have made some good changes here today, but there's still more that needs to be done, including X, Y, Z. So, you know, I need to get the hip to work better, I need to get the shoulder to function better, that neck's still a bit tight on that side, whatever it is. So I'd like to see you again in X number of days, because we have made some good changes today, but I still think there's more that can be done, including X, Y, Z. Then if it's a chronic patient that you're talking to, I tend to say, this problem has obviously been around for a while. So unless I've got my miracle hat on me today, this isn't going to be 1 or 2 treatments and you're back to 100%. At which point patients often go, yeah, I know you're right. It's gonna need a few, isn't it? So, yeah. So this problem's been around for a while. It's going to take me more than 1 or 2 treatments to get things working better for you. When I've treated people like this in the past with similar symptoms and similar problems and conditions like I found with you, I've usually found it takes X number of treatments to get better, to improve. And from experience, I would say that you fall into that category. So an estimate today would be 4 to 6 sessions. Obviously, I review you every time you come in, and hopefully we'll see the changes with every visit. So that's for the chronics. It's more of a, this has been around for a while. Let's be realistic about how long this is going to take. At that point, the patient's got a choice. The patient can say, yeah, I know, but actually I don't think it's right for me, or I can't afford it. And so I'm just going to leave it. In which case you go, that's absolutely fine. But if in a couple of weeks' time, you're still really struggling, please just give me a call. Don't feel because you've said you don't want to come back today, that doesn't mean you can't ever come back. Just make it really clear to the patient that you're still caring for them. You still want them to do well. If it's an acute patient that we're talking about, so the first one's really a chronic one. If it's an acute patient that we're talking about, I'm still looking at the short, medium and long-term treatment plan. So we'll still hopefully at some point have explained to the patient. And I might say something again like, well, we've made some really good changes today, but it's early days in your progress. So to give you the best chance of getting better quicker, I'd like to see you again in X number of days. Okay. So that's for more of your acute ones. So acknowledging the fact that it's early days, it's early stages for them, but that you still think it's necessary, you're going to make, and maybe even say what the next treatment might be. The next time I see you, I'm going to work still on that neck that's sore, but that upper back's really got some problems in as well. And if I can get that upper back moving, it's really going to take some of the pressure off the neck. That's going to help your headaches, etc., etc. Now, the tricky bit comes when you've worked your magic and the patient's better, or almost better, or really on the road to recovery. And what you actually want to do is to get them to come back in a month's time, 6 weeks' time, whatever. I'm going to talk about that later on, because that's really the key to a successful practice, and the key to really being a valuable member of your community is to have patients that keep coming back because they love you, because they're your raving fans. Excuse me 1 second, I'm talking so much I'm getting a dry throat. So, slightly leading on from that is you've done all of that, you've worked your magic, the patient has booked in again, then you notice that they've cancelled or they don't show up. What do? You phone them, you text them, you message them. Phoning is the best. Yes, it's incredibly scary, and yes, probably every fibre in your body is going, I do not want to make this phone call. And you know why you don't want to make the phone call, don't you? Because if I go back to what I said earlier, it's the pain or pleasure. You think when you phone up that patient, they're going to say, it's not working for me, Joe. It's, I'm actually worse than I was before. I'm not really getting any value from treatment, and so that's why I decided to cancel. Which might be the case, in which case there's another scenario that we can go down, but it might be the case that they've got to go on a business trip and they don't know when they're going to be able to book back in. It might be that they've been taken poorly, or a member of their family has been taken poorly, or they've got COVID. And so we usually jump to the negative and say, oh, it's got to be me, it's got to be my fault, I'm not being a very good osteopath, where in fact it could be the patient who, there are reasons beyond our control, and that's where they've cancelled. Now, I was told off in my first job for not doing that. I can remember it to this day. My lovely boss, who I was building a list from scratch, so he hired me in order to, because he was getting very busy, he was building up his business. And he'd obviously been looking through whether he was looking through my notes or whether he was looking through the diary, I don't know. But he called me into his office one day and he said, Liz, you are getting rid of your patients too quickly. I said, oh, right, okay. I thought that was the idea. I thought we got them better and then we sent them on their way. And he's like, not really. That's not, what you're not showing is patient care, is that treatment journey. And as I was saying earlier, he kind of instilled in me that we do have this obligation to our patients. It's up to them what they do with that, but we do have an obligation to help and serve them as best we can. So yeah, I was told off for not doing that. So I had to make those phone calls. Now, the person that you see now, this confident osteopath, is a very different person than I was 23 years ago, when I had to pick up that phone and go, hello, Mrs. Jones. It's Liz here, your osteopath. Hi, how you doing? Noticed that you cancelled your appointment with me on Friday. Just wanted to see how you are. You know, that really awkward conversation that you have with patients. And I hated doing it, absolutely hated doing it. But it's valuable on two levels. It is actually feedback. It might be painful feedback, but it's still feedback. And take any feedback and run with it, okay? And also, as I say, patients do quite like to be looked after. And so if they go, well, actually, yeah, I had to cancel because of X, but I'm really glad you phoned because I really wanted to book in again. So don't automatically think because they've cancelled, they don't ever want to come back and see you again. Make that phone call. It's hard to do. I know, because it still can be tricky, particularly if it's a challenging patient, but just put your big pants on and go out and make that phone call. Right, so that's the first 5. We've got another 5 to go. Number 6 is make it as easy as possible for patients to book in along the whole stage of the patient journey. So we're back in the treatment room again. You've done your brilliant job. You've given them this spiel about why you believe it's important for them to carry on treatment, and you've managed to get them to see the value of coming back to see you. And then you go to book them in. So what's your process where you work to book patients in? Where do they book in? Are you a single practitioner working on your own? So you sit down and you book them in there and then? Would you work at a practice where they go out into reception and they book through reception? However you do it, make sure it's as easy as possible for them to book in. And you've probably had this experience as well. You say to the patient, you've convinced them, you've shown them the value of what continuing with treatment is going to be. And you say, right, finish the treatment, let's go and get you booked in. So they go off into reception. Receptionist comes in and says, Mrs. Smith, can't remember how long ago is it? Do you need to see her again? When do you need to see her again? Now you've just literally had a conversation with a patient. They've walked 6 feet to the reception desk and they've forgotten what you said. So another really professional and caring thing to do is to go with your patient to reception and say, this is Mrs. Smith. I'd like to book her in X number of days, weeks, months, whatever. Then again, it's just caring a little bit more about your patient, and you get them booked in when you want them to get booked in. If you say, you leave it up to them to book in, and I'm not even going to say the words that you're not going to say, which begins with see how and finishes with get on. Those words are never going to cross your lips, are they? But if you do leave it up to them, if they genuinely can't book in there and then, don't make it, if you can, try not to get them to book themselves in. Unless your Clinico or your Jane app or whatever is down, try and get them to book in, because if you think about it, they've got to get home, get back to work, whatever. So the first thing is they're going to forget. The second thing is they've then got to find your email address with your link to your booking system. They've got to go on your website. They can't remember what the website is. They think your name might be Kirsty or Turby or Murphy. What's your surname? And they go, oh, I can't be bothered. It's too complicated. So keep it as simple as possible, as least, so that it's kind of like the course of least resistance from finishing treatment to booking them in again. That's number 6. Number 7, if you are going out to reception with the patient and you know they're going to need more than one more treatment, book several in at a time. They've got their diary out, they've got their phone out, and they're checking on their phone, and they go, oh no, I can't do that day. Oh no, I can do that day. Book that one in, and then say, right, well, let's get the next one in. So you get the time you want and you get the day that you want. Then it's in their diary, and people are much more likely to work around what's in their diary rather than go, oh no, I can't do it then because I'm meeting Sarah, or oh, I've got to go and have my toenails cut on that day. They're more likely to work around it. So book a couple in. You can always say, of course you can, if you need to change it anytime, that's fine. Just give us a call. We can always change it, but it's better to have them booked in, and then they can work around it. So that's my 7 for helping you to work out some really productive ways to make sure that patients continue treatment. And the last 3 that I'm going to talk about are the slightly more difficult. These are the patients who are better, who you've worked your magic with. How do you encourage them to come back? Well, we used to hear in our profession expressions like, never let a patient leave the door without booking in again. Now, you might be of that philosophy. I'm very much of the philosophy of, I want to do as much as I can to allow that patient to see the value of treatment, but I wouldn't force anybody ever to book in a treatment if they don't want to. That feels very icky to me. But what I genuinely believe is that by having treatment regularly, it's going to make a difference for them. And I will say things to them like, I really think I should have a look at you in about 6 weeks' time, because I know what you're going to do. You're going to go off and live your life. You're going to play your football. You're going to dig in the garden. We're coming up to ski season, aren't we? You know, people go off doing mad ski things. You know, life happens. You're going to live your life. And I would really think it's going to be value to you to get something booked in, the time you want, the day you want, and then it's in. You can always change it, but my late night slots tend to go, my Saturday morning slots tend to go. Make them see you really care about them, you really value them, you want them to do well, you want them to keep active and happy, because who doesn't want a healthy, happy life? So book them in. Again, you're showing them that you care and you're being authentic. If they're still hesitant, or if they say no, it's fine, I'll book in again when I'm ready, you've got 2 options. What I say to my patients is, yeah, obviously that's absolutely fine. What I'm going to do is, if I haven't heard from you in a month, 6 weeks, if it's all right with you, I'm going to put you in the diary, and I'll just get myself, my receptionist, to give you a reminder call just to see how you are. If you're fine at that point, no problem. We'll put another reminder in 6 weeks or so. But it might be that at that point you're thinking, oh, actually, yeah, it's about time I came back to see you. You think it's about time you came to see me. So put something, let them know that you're going to still look after them. Put in a reminder call. If that's going to be too challenging for you, or you don't have receptionists at the practice that you work at or where you work, what systems have you got in place to have recall on your patients? A lot of the apps nowadays, like clinic apps, I don't know about JNAP because I don't use JNAP, but a lot of the automated software services will have reminders. So what do you do to keep in touch with your patients? Do you send out 3 monthly reminders, monthly reminders? What do you do on social media? What do you have an email list where you send out a useful newsletter once a month, or a useful email? Keep in touch with your patients. They've come to you for a reason. If you've managed to take them on that healing journey and they've done better and they've enjoyed their time with you, they won't see it as invasive. If they want to unsubscribe, they can unsubscribe. If they don't want to read it, that's up to them. But you're just making sure that they know you're still there for them, and when that moment comes when they get that back pain, neck pain, headache, or Auntie Jo does or their colleague at work, you're the first person that comes to mind because you're the one who's nurtured those relationships. You've shown you've cared about them, however you do it, and you'll be the first person that they think about. And my final tip, my tip number 10, is you're the expert. Never forget that. I know you might think, I'm not as experienced as, but we know we need to get rid of that thought, don't we? You know more than you think you know. Unless your patient is another osteopath, you know a lot more than the majority of your patients do. Unless, of course, and I'm sure you've heard this story about my incredibly embarrassing moment with my patient where I was telling him all about arthritis and what arthritis did to the body, and it turns out that he was a world-leading expert on arthritis. Wish the ground had opened up to swallow me whole? Absolutely. He is the loveliest person, and he has gone on to be a lovely patient, but it was a very embarrassing moment. So unless it's someone like that with that experience, you are the more expert, is that the right way to say it? You're the expert in the room. You have the expertise and you have the skill, and you know, even if you're not 100% sure, you know what that patient needs in terms of their treatment. Your skill, your expertise, your caring, your craziness, your joy, your joking around, whatever it is, your patients need that, and don't forget that. So that is my final tip. Just keep in touch with your patients. That's a real key. It's, you know, people have this idea in practice that you've got to continually get new patients in, and they actually forget about the patients that have already come to see them. But the patients who you've already convinced, who have already come to see you and you've got better, they're going to make them your raving fans, make them feel appreciated and looked after and cared for, and you genuinely won't have a problem getting people to come back. So 10 top tips. I hope that's been useful. I can't actually see whether we have any of the chat. I don't think we do, so that's cool. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you if you were one of the people who voted. I really appreciate that. I'm going to do polls more regularly because I need to know what you need, and I don't want to guess what you need and it's not helpful for you. And the next one will probably be on, hello Trudy, thank you. What was the other one in the group? Oh, it was treatment reactions. So I wonder whether treatment reactions might be the next one we do. Anyway, let me know. Hope that's been helpful. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.